You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Welcome back. I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
And I'm Andrea from Concrete and Crystals and Spirit Crumbs.
We're so excited to have you back. We are in between eclipses as we record this. I remember saying last month, maybe we'd see you, maybe we wouldn't. But so far we're okay.
Yes, we have survived this far. It's been a question mark, but we are here. Alas, we have made it this far.
We've made it this far. I think I'm actually ready for this next eclipse. It's like the intensity of it building, feeling it coming. I'm like, just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go. It's very earth sign of us. I think some people are like, no, it's hard. I hate it. Make it go back. And I'm just like, get it. Be done. We got to move on.
I think as earth signs, as much as it seems like we're stuck in our ways or whatever, but it's like we just want the things to be happening. Like I want the materialization to happen. So like the questioning and thinking and processing and being emotional, I can't do it. I just can't. And yeah, I'm also not as fiery. Like I don't want to blow everything up. I just want to get moving. Like I just want to see things happening. I don't want to see the burning and the rubble. I just want to like build the things. I just want to do things and keep moving.
Oh, it's been, for a Virgo season, and we've talked about this multiple times, but this one in particularly had a lot of air in it. It just was a very thought-inducing Virgo season. I looked strongly at those eclipses because we were at the same North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo in 2006. And man, do I see the direct connections. For me, it's been screaming loud and clear. So I've really been trying to sit with that energy and recognizing, patterns, just overthinking things, looking at patterns, picking up habits. And I feel like I'm zoomed out, that air quality of like zoomed out looking at things. I've spent too much time analyzing is what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It's been very much like an in the head sort of like removed from society energy for me. And I think too, like it almost makes me feel more into like that, of course, Mercury energy of Virgo. But like, I think when I was thinking back to the 2006 sort of thing, like I was finishing high school, but I decided to take a year or two off before I went to school. And I was in the in between where I was just doing the job that I was doing and like, I'll get to what I'm doing eventually. But like, I feel like this time around, like, I don't have the patience. I'm like, that's what I'm recognizing. It's like, it's a similar cycle where I know I'm done with one thing. I just don't know what the next thing is yet. Except now I'm like, I'll do literally anything, like throw it at me. Like, again, that like rip the Band-Aid off. Like, I don't feel like I want to just live in this space as much as I was okay with doing it at that time. It was because like, the day to day was just whatever it is, it's like there's nothing pulling on you. But I think, yeah, this time around, I definitely have been doing more thinking than doing. But now I feel like there's movement happening. Like all of the inspirations are turning into like material things finally after 1,000 years. And I think that's what I needed was just like, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was like watching older movies and like, scrolling through Pinterest and doing all of that just because I needed to do something with my time. But I didn't realize it was actually like me feeding my brain what I needed so that now I'm like, okay, I have an idea and I'm going to do it. And, that feels so good right now. And I think that's sort of hopefully the direction we're going in terms of like that action coming in to follow all of this overthinking.
It was interesting. I was listening to someone talk this morning about the eclipses in general, this Virgo Pisces axis. And one of the things that I think we've talked about so many times is what, on a scale of Virgo to Pisces, like where does someone fall? But it's really the big picture versus tiny detail. And we're being asked desperately to look at, am I busy doing my life's work and I can't be bothered with the tiny details because this big picture thing is so important? doll houses, forgetting to cook and clean, the basics? Or am I so worried and getting all of the details 100% aligned and taken care of that I can't look at the big picture until I'm 100% sure that that foundation is stable? I'm not willing to make a leap into the unknown until I know I've got a sure thing. And so I've had so many conversations come up where, you can't pick one or the other. That daily balance comes into play. I always remember Eat, Pray, Love, like balance is a moment by moment. You don't find it once and then work to keep that equilibrium like you're on a balance beam. It's different every single day in every single relationship. So if you find that you're being challenged with those things right now, I'd say congrats, you're right on track. This is what you're supposed to be doing. But it also, God, it makes living in these particular times where the big picture is uncertain, that makes it even harder.
Totally. And as we've been talking about this year, I am the guinea pig for the universe. And so this is actually my birth chart node for it. Like I am a Pisces North node, Virgo South node. So all of my Capricorn instincts meeting up with the South node in Virgo do make me get kind of lost in the details sometimes. And I think I try to make pieces fit for what I already have right in front of my face instead of being like, remember that idea you had that was fun that you were like, I'd love to do this. Why don't you just do that? And again, like we've talked about many times about me is I create my own deadlines and timelines and expectations and then feel like I'm letting other people down when no one even knows I have these. I'm the only one that's even aware of them. And everyone else is like, what are you talking about? I'm just living my life. And I'm like, oh, only I'm wasting my own time. So I think we all need to kind of be aware of our own patterns. Again, with Emily saying patterns, that's something I've been paying a lot of attention to. Is why do I feel like this is familiar energy? Why do I feel like I've been here many times before? And it makes me think of this card in the Wisdom of the Oracle deck. It's number 25, the round and round card, where it says yes, you are going to have some patterns that keep repeating, but it's not a bad thing. It means that you're seeing it from a different perspective because you're moving up a spiral. You're not just going in the same circle on a flat track. You're actually moving up a spiral. So you're seeing it from a higher perspective, a little bit more of a big picture as opposed to being stuck in it. The first time you have a breakup with someone, it's your entire world. You can't function for months and you're crying to all your friends and you can't go to school and it's a whole thing. But when you're an adult and you have been in many relationships and then you start to see things that aren't compatible, you just go, that's a logical thing. Yes, it's upsetting, but I don't want to go through that again. And it's just an acceptance that you get to. And I think with any pattern that you have that comes up like this, it's I see it for myself where I'm okay, I'm feeling really agitated and urgent. Where is this urgency coming from? And then when I trace it back to me, it's here we are again. And I'm just gonna, put this away, put on a movie and start sketching. And I think we need to kind of be aware, like Emily said, of that, big picture versus details and finding a balance. Yeah, I'm not going to neglect everything I was supposed to be doing, but also let's not create more work than we need.
One of the interesting things that I think we are just now in the last few days past finally was that sort of window between August 6th and 10th, where in 1 week we had Mars moved into Libra. It was opposite Saturn, opposite Neptune, trying to Pluto, trying to Uranus. And it was here's our motivation, right? We've already had Mars retrograde this year, which is frustrating enough. We don't experience that every year. It's finally been moving. We're catching up. But then it comes into contact with all of these things where we're looking at things from the perspective of others and relationships and where do we fit in and how do we make it all work and how do we keep it all balanced and fair. And then it runs into all of these aspects where it's either making you question it, question your own structures, making you question how you've put together plans. It's making you it's basically grading you on everything that you've learned thus far this year. And if it feels like it's not working, it's the whole thing gets exacerbated in our own head. It's like you said, I'm letting myself down. I'm letting others down. I'm it's never going to happen. I feel like I'm never going to get there. It's like being on the bridge and you can't see either end. and you're like, I just feel stuck. I feel hopeless. It's a frustrating energy this week. And I would love to say it's going to get better, but we move from this heaviness of air into an unbelievably wet fall. It'll be interesting if it even matches that meteorologically, if we have a very wet fall. But astrologically, we're going to have 7 planets in water by the time we hit Scorpio season. And that's a lot of emotions. Plus, we've got Jupiter at home in Cancer, amplifying that. So anytime the moon transits into another water sign, then we get like a flood of emotions. So it's a lot to say that, oh, you're fine. I'm not feeling anything. It's fine. There's probably something under the surface. Or if you're just frustrated and crying and things come up every day, again, I feel like you're right on time. These are uncharted waters.
Yeah, I think that there's sort of that seeping in already a little bit. I think I've noticed a lot more emotions, even when I'm thinking about conversations I've heard around people making decisions and stuff. Like a lot of it is coming from that emotional place. And I think because I'm so removed from that most of the time, like for me, I'm like trying to bring in emotions, be like, how do I actually feel about this? But I do think in the fall it's sort of like you have to put a warning out, like, you know, take a breath before you react, or, find out where the emotion's coming from, find out like what someone's intention is, as opposed to like maybe how things are coming across. And I think there's going to be, obviously in Libra season, it's a very relational energy, but I think with all of the added water, it's going to be really exaggerated. So I think that focus on like the balance of like big picture versus like getting in the details of like in the moment and being in the feels, like kind of zooming out a little bit is going to be really helpful in all different ways. Like whether you're making actual decisions for business or something, or if you're like in a relationship and there's something coming up, I think that ability to zoom out a little bit is going to be really helpful.
So let's dive into Libra, right? The sun is going to be coming in. I'm going to back up when I start giving you the week by week so that we cover a little bit of the eclipse. But Libra season itself, it's ruled by Venus. Venus loves nothing more than to smooth out the edges. How can we all get along? How can we make things beautiful, comfortable, sensual? What can we do to bring that into harmony and how we're relating to one another? And such a beautiful, amazing part of being human are those relationships. It's what we experience with one another that makes life so beautiful. Libra season comes along right at fall equinox. So this is a time where we are ushering in fall in the meteorological sense, and autumn, those sorts of things. But we reach this pivotal moment in when the ancients recognized where sun and light are equal, and we're entering now, we're losing light. We're heading towards solstice. And so we start to question the end of life. We talk about the crones, the end of life, the end of cycles, the end of seasons, and what comes after. And if you haven't sort of buttoned up your relationships, if you haven't made strong bonds that are going to help you survive through the winter, how are you going to get by? If you're not friendly with your neighbor to go borrow a cup of flour in case a storm comes in, what do you do to make it through the winter? Are you hermiting? Are you leaning on people that are living with you or visiting? All of those things come into play. And where Libra can sometimes get stuck is, where do I start and someone else ends? Because I'm dependent on them. They're dependent on me. There's this awareness of the web and how we're all intricately connected. But this can also lead to losing yourself, to crossing boundaries, to shape shifting into what you think you should be in a relationship or a situation, instead of staying really true to yourself. And particularly this year, where everything is up in question, recognizing, are you exhausting yourself in these relationships, trying to shape shift and fit in and make things smooth in order for your nervous system to feel safe and secure? Or are you honoring what you actually need in the moment, asking for it, setting your boundaries, letting some of those relationships not feel nurtured if you're not in a place to take care of them, asking for help? A lot of those I would say emotional relationship boundaries are going to be the theme through this Libra season. And in the past, I think we've had Libra seasons that felt a little more fiery and action oriented. This is, it's water. It's just almost all water. Adding to some of that frustration, we're going to have Saturn backs into Pisces on September 7th. So we've added in water there. Neptune is going to move in on October 22nd. So it's going to catch the tail end of Libra season. And then Uranus moves into Taurus on November 7th. So we get a lot of backtracking into old familiar signs. So are you falling into old familiar patterns? These are slower moving transits. So these are things that have lasted 20 to 15 to 7 years. So you've kind of become entrenched in some of these, and they just might not be there to support you or catch you in the ways that you've become accustomed or expect in some way. And if you're not being clear in where you are emotionally, how you're feeling, what you're stating, I think there's a lot of opportunities for words to be misconstrued. I think there's a lot of misinformation in general. We kind of don't even know what to trust anymore. Just to slow things down and really move through your days very intentionally, let things kind of roll off your back and recognize that it's okay to slow down. We're coming out of that crazy busy summer season. We haven't reached Sagittarius yet, which always ramps it up as we get closer to the holidays. But let this in between Libra and Scorpio season slow you down just a little bit. Not everything has to happen all at once.
Yeah, I totally feel like that intentional energy is going to be really important. And I think what Emily was saying around like the shoulds and that sort of energy, she and I have been talking quite a bit about the energy of like choosing what you want and what you desire versus like an obligation where like maybe 5 years ago you said you would start doing something for someone and now it's 5 years later and you're like, why am I still doing this? Like, all those kinds of things that like you feel tension. I think again, like by slowing down, I think we talked about this earlier in the year where there was a cycle of this where like the more you slow down, the more you can feel in your body, like what you actually feel about something. And something's like, giving you a pit in your stomach when you go to do it, or like if you feel yourself tensing up around certain people, I think things are going to become impossible to ignore. We've had that energy quite a bit lately of the like last month. I think what we were talking about was like once you see it, you can't unsee it with eclipse season. And I think that's going to continue, but more so like instead of being in our awareness, it'll be more like in our body where maybe we're going to try to just slip into those old patterns because it's comfortable, but your body's not going to let you. It's not going to feel comfortable anymore. Like what Emily was saying, it's going to be something where it's like, okay, I guess now I'm kind of forced out of the nest to go out and like figure something out that's new that I'm not comfortable with. Maybe I'm going to have difficult conversations that I don't want to have. Um, but yeah, I think that energy of slowing down will allow you to at least regulate yourself before you get into these conversations. It gives you more time to like process before you're just jumping into them. Because I think what happens is if we don't and we just keep doing our day to day against tuning into the details, not looking at the big picture, doing the day to day, then by the time the next fire season comes, all of a sudden it's going to be the holidays bring up a lot, right? So if we haven't processed things before the holidays, can be a really uncomfortable and perhaps upsetting holiday season. And I think this year, especially like Emily was saying, there's so much water that we do have to really be aware of other people's emotions. And sometimes we do have to just let things go and know, like, this is not my battle. This is not something that I really want to put my energy into. And also knowing where we need the boundaries proactively, maybe in some cases. But I do feel like that's going to be helpful to slow down and feel in your body what is no longer feeling safe or aligned because we probably haven't tuned into our bodies much this summer. I feel like it's been a lot in the head.
Something else that came to mind when you were talking, Libra is a cardinal energy. So it's the start of a season, right? It needs that initiation. But something that happens with cardinal, and I always think of this particularly in the fall and the spring, we get like 2 weeks of summer. And then all of a sudden you have 2 weeks of fall and you like pull out your sweaters and you're like, all right, we're in fall. And then all of a sudden you get 3 days of summer and it's like, hot again and you don't know whether you're coming or going, you can't regulate your temperature, you don't know what clothes you're wearing. It feels overwhelming. And so that's some of that start, stop, begin again. It takes a minute to get into the flow. By the time we get to the end of a cardinal season, that's when we get hit the fixed sign that holds the energy. So this is a little bit of that choppy in and out. It's a hokey-pokey kind of Libra season.
Yeah, I feel like that hokey-pokey energy for sure is going to be kind of almost haunting us, where it's gonna be like, "Why am I still doing the chicken dance? It's been 6 weeks. Can we learn a new move?" Um, where you look around and you're like, "Why are we doing this? I'm 38," you know? That's sort of the energy I feel. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be kind of irritating after a while where you're again, it forces you into, like, choosing a direction and going with it, but it's easy to get distracted when people are doing weird shit all around you, and you're just like, "What are we even doing here?" For the first while, it's like, "I said I was gonna do this, but that person's out playing in the playground, and I'm at my desk. I said I was gonna focus on this," right? I just feel like, yeah, that whiplash in a way. It's gonna be, I think, exaggerated because we have the eclipse so close to the beginning of this season.
Absolutely. Do you want me to talk about the eclipse before we talk about your first card?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get people settled into like where we are,
Where we're
what's
at?
happening before all of this
Ah,
happens.
what's happening? So I wanted to just cover this because that Virgo solar eclipse is a huge moment. Um, we've got back-to-back Virgo new moons, so double, one at about 0 and some minutes, not quite 1 degree, and this is at 29 degrees. So we don't get that double energy very often. In this case, it's at that anoretic degree, that build up in Virgo, where it's like, what are we really meant to learn? Or particularly in this case, let go of? What are we bringing in instead? What have we released through this eclipse season? Whether it's responsibilities or details, or we're looking at the big picture in a new way. And what inspires you, or what I think is going to bring some interesting energy, particularly out of this eclipse, is that literally a few hours later, Mars dives into Scorpio and then the autumn equinox hits. So it's got this potent energy where things are moving quickly. Um, and I think if you're looking at ways where you feel like you've set the stage, right, to make these really disciplined developments, but all of a sudden there's a plot twist. Again, it's that I'm in, I'm out. I got it. You just have to change. You have to flow with it. And again, this is where the watery part comes in. It's like, well, I don't want what really was headed in the way over here. But you can't hyper focus on any one thing. It's like you just gotta let it kind of bounce off of you. Make sure you're, taking care of yourself. If you aren't making sure you get all your water, if you're not nourishing your body daily in ways that really support you, you also have to then take care of your spiritual body in the same way. Are you meditating? Are you taking time in nature? Are you putting boundaries in place where maybe you don't need to take on other people's baggage right now? Just kind of brace yourself for what may be coming. That's the best thing I could say. I do think there will probably be some more global issues that are going to come out of this. I mean, clearly the last eclipse brought out all sorts of things, shootings and toppling governments, and it was wild. So I can only imagine what will take place in the next 7 to 10 days. The other thing about eclipses is that they come in these groups. So until 2027, we're going to have these eclipses in Virgo and Pisces. So this isn't over. We've got all of next year to go through this energy as well. Plus, whatever is happening now usually connects to what happens in 6 months, right? Because then it's the opposite. We'll have the full moon in Virgo and it'll be a lunar eclipse. So there's a connection to all of it. You start to kind of see how the web comes together of what you're supposed to be focusing on right now. It's it's tricky. Eclipses are just tricky pivot points.
I think that that makes a lot of sense for how the Libra season cards are starting out, because I was thinking it's going to be something more intense, right off the bat, having come right off of the eclipse. But the first one for September 23rd to 27th is the Ace of Pentacles. And it's a very soft ace in terms of like the impact of it, because what it's telling you is that you have potential in whatever it is that's coming forward, but you have to nourish it. So the word nourish, the fact that you said that, like, you have to do the day-to-day things. You have to do the things to set it up for success. It's not something you're going to plant and then leave it and be like, oh, why this die? It's something where you're going to actually have to do it. But it's that earth sign energy we were talking about, that like when you are an earth sign, it's a little bit more natural. So maybe if you're not an earth sign, this may be like, oh, I don't want to put, my time and have to physically do this thing over and over again till it catches on and it works. But sometimes that is something we need to find our own rhythm to. I think if you think about it, anybody, let's say you take studying, everyone's going to attempt that differently. Some people are going to have 10 things on in the background so they can focus. Some people are going to need complete silence. Some people are going to have to be locked in a room by themselves. Some people are going to need to be in a room where other people are also studying so that they don't get, off track. And I think for anything you want to accomplish, again, with it being Libra season, it's a relational season, I think leaning into where you fall on that scale. If you know that in order to accomplish goal, you need collaboration and you need support, then start with that. That's the seeds you're going to be nourishing. That's where that Ace of Pentacles is going for you. It's setting down the foundation of like your core people. Whereas if you're someone who needs to really focus on your own, then you're going to be, making your to-do list and, mapping out what that looks like for you. Um, for this season, I made just and I sat and sort of channeled a single sentence that would like stick with me for each one. And this one is put energy into things you believe in. So it still ties into, I feel like that's really touching on the eclipse energy, that Virgo Pisces axis, because the Pisces is like, what do you believe in? What is the bigger picture? What is it that, is out there that resonates with you, that connects you to the world and to the universe and all those things. But then Virgo is like, okay, but like, how do I break that down? Where's the list? Like, what can I do? What does that mean? What do I do with that information? So I think that phrase, putting energy into things you believe in, it's not making you stuck to one particular thing or like making you isolate yourself. It's just saying like, make sure that, again, you really do desire something. You're not just doing it out of obligation, going back to that. So it's interesting to start off the season that way, but I think it really does reflect the energy Emily was talking about around the eclipse, where yes, it's going to make us maybe you know, jumpstart into something we wouldn't necessarily have chosen right away, but it's in a way that is more intentional and taking that time to say, okay, this is coming into my awareness. All of a sudden I have this opportunity, but how do I make sure as, a cardinal sign setting us up so that when we get into the fixed energy, we're going in the right direction. And I think as somebody with so much cardinal energy myself, like I know that like being adaptable is part of that and being able to adapt to the conditions around you. I think that's a big part of it. And that's people, that's energy, the literal weather, your emotions. There's a lot of emotions right now. But yeah, like trying to set yourself up for success in like a really accessible way and knowing yourself. Again, like don't shoot yourself in the foot by saying, I'm going to do this all on my own. If you thrive with support and people around you and collaborators and partners, just know yourself well enough at this point. And again, slowing down to recognize that and being in your body and actually taking that time is going to be your best tool in this season.
I think that's such an interesting card to pull for this week, and I'm trying to kind of figure out how it fits in. Because there's a lot of triggers and sort of plot twists and things coming up this week. And also that, like you said, that feeling of a buzzkill almost of I took this risk to do something, or I really thought this was the direction I was supposed to be going, and now I've got to change, or I don't know that that's the relationship I need to lean into or the connection, whatever it is. There's just this weird searching for balance. And having the opportunity, I think the Ace of Pentacles delivers is like, what's the optimism and what you're maybe losing this week? What are you actually being shown as a gift? And what's interesting, so right straight out of the eclipse on the 22nd, we get that Mars dive into Scorpio. And this is 6 weeks of those deep dives, intense emotions. And it feels like sort of nobody wants to back down. Mars gives you courage to sort of face things head on or even walk away. But those intense emotions that can also lead to paranoia or to suspicious ideas like, well, did they really mean that? But they didn't say it. So I really encourage you during this entire Libra transit to make sure and base your actions on facts and not fears. And what even is a fact anymore? That's part of having Uranus in Gemini. Who even knows? So you kind of have to put enough trust in yourself that you are going to make the right decision. Um, One of the other things that happens right away early on the 23rd with the sun in Libra, we're going to get that dynamic air trine activated again. This time it's going to be between Pluto, Uranus, and the sun, which are all between 0 and 1 degrees of each of the 3 air signs. And this is going to last for 2 full days. If you've reached what you feel is like a plateau in something, get ready because I really feel like this transit is going to shake things up somehow. If your intuition you find is maybe nudging you towards something that you may think that's just wild or super risky, I wouldn't normally do that. You might find yourself actually tempted to do it because it just feels inspiring. I just encourage you to be careful to explore all the options because you might not be seeing that full picture. Again, are you zoomed in on the final result more so than the big picture in some way? With the sun opposite Neptune, also that's adding sort of this dense layer of mental fog. So it could even be hard to see the next step. So are you taking sort of a trust fall or are you just sort of delusional and deciding I'm going to go with this even if it doesn't work? We also on the 24th have Mars in Scorpio. This is going to be squaring off with Pluto in Aquarius. And this is big energy this week. There's just no way to say it. When Mars already in Scorpio is intense, Pluto in Aquarius is asking us to, it's still backing up at this point, right? It's still at the final retrograde point. It's almost at a standstill. So it's kind of increasing that energy even more. But it can bring up emotions, resentment, jealousy, possessiveness. Everyone is going to be probably easily triggered. I really think the 24th could be one of 2025's worst days in terms of trying to compromise on anything. With that air trine, opinions are going to be flying in every direction. The news is likely going to be changing faster than you can keep up. And then the moon moves into Scorpio on top of it all. So I would just say lay low this week, kind of take it easy. If anything ends, look at the silver lining. The 25th, we still have some of that underlying energy. On the 26th, the moon moves into Sagittarius, which is great because you were going to burn off some of that emotional residue. But it also makes you want to just like book a flight and get out of town and disassociate. So that could be risky in some way or another. But that ends the week of what just feels like kind of ecliptic chaos.
I feel like with all of that going on, that Ace of Pentacles really is telling us to like lean into the small steps that we can do so that we don't get swept up in all of that energy. So I think now it makes more sense knowing that. I think that's probably what it's telling us to do is like look at the day-to-day steps and like even caring for ourselves, like what Emily had been saying before.
That
I
makes
think
so much
that
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for that. Leaning into like, have I had my breakfast? Like, just get through the basics and don't worry about the rest of it.
Yeah, it's like reminding yourself that you're human, like treat yourself like a house plant. Like I need water. Do I need food? Do I need sunlight? Have I been outside this week? That sort of thing. Um, for sure. And it's interesting because we go from that into the second week, which is September 28th to October 4th. And we're getting a major arcana for the first time. And it's the 10, the wheel. And so I think the thing we need to remember is that the Wheel of Fortune isn't just bringing us a giant fortune or windfall. It's an opportunity that's turning where it's like the timing is more than anything. So if there's something you've been waiting on, you might have it appear. If you're waiting for something to inspire you, you may find something that's inspiring, or it may be something totally unexpected. And it might be something that comes out of kind of left field. And you just have to, again, tune into your body and be like, is this something I actually want? Or am I going to say yes because it's in front of me and someone I know is offering and I don't want to disappoint them? I think with it being Libra season, we have to be very aware that that is probably going to be some people's dynamic, is where it's coming from sometimes can dictate how we respond. And I think that's where recognizing the cycle and like your own patterns and knowing that sometimes you're just saying yes because it's in front of you and you don't believe that thing you want might actually come. So I think in the way, as much as I don't really like to believe that the universe tests us, just think that we are learning and that we are responding in a new way when things come up again. So if it's something that 100%, it makes your skin crawl doing it, but you're impatient, don't say yes just because it's there. Because then you're just going to be, using up energy that you're going to need when the other thing comes up or something new comes up. But for this, actually, before I get too far into it, I didn't even read this until now, but the week two's phrase is say yes to things that feel aligned, even if you aren't sure why yet. Now, this is key because when I was pulling, I didn't even talk about the theme for the month, but maybe we'll leave that for a minute. But um, one of the things that happened was when I was shuffling, the Y card came out, the number 31 in the Wisdom of the Oracle, which is just what it says. It's like tune into why you're doing things. And I feel like that was meant to also be an underlying energy. And the fact that I'm thinking of it now, I'm sure it's for this particular week. And knowing if you're going to say yes to something or something's showing up out of nowhere, just kind of tune into like, why would I do this? Is this something that actually feels good, or am I doing it just because? But yeah, sometimes we don't know why. Sometimes things come up and it just feels right. We cannot explain it and we don't need to. I think we really, again, like Emily was saying, like we need to learn to trust ourselves and trust our own intuition. And I think that's difficult in a Libra season when it's so emotional and there's a lot of people that we're connected to. And again, we might hurt someone's feelings by saying, no, I don't really want to work with you on that. Or, thank you, but I think I'm going to do this on my own. Like sometimes those energies can be the most difficult, but I feel like there's so much on the other side of that when you do actually say what you want and you do, again, set those boundaries and set things up in a way that feels good to you. It also mirrors that to other people. It's how other people are then going forward going to interact with you. They're not going to just expect you to say yes. They're going to actually thoughtfully ask in a way where it's like, hey, would you be interested? Instead of like, hey, can you just do this and try to pass it off to you because you're there? But yeah, I think there's a lot of energy behind that tuning into why. I think that's like a piece of slowing down is not immediately just saying yes because you feel like you should, but also on the other side of it, not sitting around and waiting forever if you're the type of person that overthinks things and then the time passes or someone else says yes first or you're gonna have to wait till the next time it makes sense, especially if it's like for some reason that thing that came to my mind, which I think is just an example, is like there's fall fairs happening, right? And like if you want to apply, it's not that this is going to be like a life-changing event, but just the idea that there's a certain window that you have to show up with your things to be like, this is going to be considered for this. A job application, most of them are open for a certain amount of time. So it's things like that to be really aware of, where sometimes you have to make sure you give yourself enough time to have a proper response or like to, let's say the deadline is a certain day, but then you look and you're like, oh, I have to make a whole new thing to submit. I don't have time to do that. Right. So really try to feel into the energy quickly, but give yourself time to process it. So I don't know what's coming, but it feels really intense because we have this like slow energy moving up to it. So I do feel like it's something that you're going to have to make a decision on pretty quickly.
What I think is so interesting about this week is it starts off with that first quarter moon in Capricorn, which I feel like sets sort of the tone for the whole week. Um, That happens on the 29th. And, coming out of all of this air and water, and then by the time the moon like makes its statement and it's at a right angle, it's at 90 degrees to the sun at this point. So you're kind of picking between what's the logical thing, what's really going to move me forward versus where am I emotionally at with things right now. And so it might feel like they're showing spirit showing me that idea of like um throwing a climbing hook on something. Like you just have to lasso, you just have to hook on and make the next step. And I think that'll come up kind of a lot for this week. We also have Mercury going square to Jupiter on October the 1st. Now, this one feels a little tricky because it's like, did you really mean to say that? Mercury is in, fairness, and it's in diplomatic Libra. And it's just, I want to make everybody happy. And it runs into these emotional barriers again because it's going to square off with Jupiter in nurturing Cancer. So are you self sacrificing? Are you, sort of cutting off your foundation before you get a chance to make the next step? On the other hand, you could say something to someone that feels really helpful and feels like you've cut them off at the knees. So your words are just, I think, naturally going to carry more weight than you intended them to. This is also the window where you could overpromise, overthink, over anger. Remember, these are faster moving transits. Thankfully, Mercury, this isn't going to last a super long time. This is like a day, maybe 2 days at the most of kind of this tricky energy where you just like, I can't seem to solve anything. Like, is nothing going to come together, but it's going to move. I think what's frustrating is that this is going to happen while the moon is in Capricorn. So you're like, oh my God, can I just not make this happen? But the moon then is going to slide into Aquarius, late in the afternoon of the 1st. And then things kind of calm down again. Now, on the 3rd, we get this tension between Mercury again, having its tour in Libra, and it's going to oppose Chiron, so our wounded healer vibes in Aries. And really, I think this battle is about you over intellectualizing your pain point in some way, where you've convinced yourself that others have it easier than you do, or no one has to go through what I have to go through to make this thing happen. But who's in charge of grading pain? Like, there's nobody who's got a scale out there that's saying, you're right, they've suffered less and you've suffered more. It's our own viewpoint. So how can you kind of slip out of that perspective and look at something from that higher Pisces lens? And thankfully, the moon is going to slip into Pisces on that 3rd around 10 p.m. So if you can kind of lose yourself in what it is that lit you up to begin with, what were you excited about? Why did you feel like you needed to move in that direction? This energy feels better than the previous week, but it still feels a little, it's like emotionally sticky taffy, is what I would call it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because that wheel was not feeling like an easy, like, yeah, it's here. Woohoo. It was sort of a, if you're gonna do it, but let's not get crazy. But the next week actually feels like it's a bit of a buffer between the first half and the second half. So from October 5th to the 11th, I pulled the Six of Wands, which we love. Love the Six of Wands. For me, it's usually a bit of a beacon of like, okay, even if it's small wins, it's like there's going to be some wins, but sometimes that involves you actually telling people that you achieved something. I think sometimes we expect people to just like somehow intuitively know that we did something or we accomplished something. And it's like, if you're not sharing it with anyone, then like it almost feels like you didn't do it. And I think for a lot of us, like I'm so Capricorn, very cardinal. I just want to move on to the next thing. And then I never celebrate anything because I just keep going and I don't stop long enough to be like, hey guys, I did this. Like I look at my Instagram, like I've made so many things and my art Instagram has been dead since like beginning of the summer. The entire summer went by. I've done all kinds of weird projects. Have I shared any of it? No. So this feels like a self-directed problem where it's like, yes, maybe if you feel again, like what Emily was saying, if you're not being celebrated or if things are really hard for you, try to find something to celebrate, even if it's small, and share it however it feels appropriate. If you just want to tell a friend or have that support system, that's one thing, but maybe you do want to share something publicly. Maybe there's something that you haven't given yourself credit for. Even if it happened a month ago, who cares? No one knows because you didn't tell them. So I think like the thing that's coming to mind, the phrase is like there's no statute of limitation for celebration, which just came in very clearly now. It's not something I have written down, but I think that really does feel like that's why this feels like a beacon to me. It's like that, okay, I really do need something to pull it together. And because it's a 6, it tends to be a card of like balance and connection and like harmony and like making things feel more supported. And I think that's why this is coming in right now. And for week 3, actually, the the thing that I wrote was allow your achievements to be seen and celebrated out loud. And again, this is like out loud that involves you putting it out there and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and say, I did this thing. And maybe not everyone's going to be super excited about it, but there will be people that even if they're quietly in the background, what I'm seeing in my head is sometimes everyone's overwhelmed and they're just scrolling and they're not taking the time maybe to like comment and share and all the things. But there's this energy of like, there will be a time when that will be a beacon for them. And eventually it will come back around where they'll say, remember when you shared that thing? I'm sorry I didn't comment at the time, but it inspired me to do this, right? So I think that idea of like immediate impact versus long term is what's kind of happening. Like we're still in this period where we're still experiencing a lot of the eclipse energy and like the effects of that. And like Emily said, it's a 6-month cycle. So we don't know 6 months from now. We may get a lot of feedback about the things we're sharing now. And so I feel like even for yourself, just to have that record, it's almost like having that journal or diary of having the things that you're achieving now and seeing where that takes you 6 months from now and being able to look back on it yourself. But that involves being vulnerable and putting it out there for others to see it too. So it does feel like it's kind of a turning point in the month, but in a way that's still soft enough that you get to sort of like feel out where that's going to be. But it's also kind of putting yourself in a position where you don't really know how it's going to be received.
Yeah, this is it's a less sticky week. And what happens at this point, like by the 5th, we've got that moon building to a full moon, right? It doesn't happen until the 6th, but you're going to feel a little moody, a little frustrated, a little stuck. Mercury is going to be at that final degree of Libra. So, really, on the 5th, I would say use it as an opportunity to lean in and ask for that support or, like you said, to share something. I wrote down, sometimes we resist reaching out for fear of our too muchness when another person is feeling exactly the same way and just needs you to share your too muchness, which really isn't, so that they can feel more comfortable. What happens on the 6th, the moon is going to have slipped into Aries overnight. Mercury is going to have fast tracked into Scorpio. So already there's like this difference between the 5th and 6th. And what I like about this is that we're getting to the point where we're starting to leave the eclipse energy behind, right? This is the first moon after that. So, like, the residual effect is finally getting out of our system a little bit. But you might feel in this energy like you overshared yesterday. Like all of a sudden, oh my God, I said the thing, or like you kind of want to retreat behind the curtain and fade into nothingness. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But with Mercury and Scorpio, and it's going to be here until October 29th, this is the perfect energy for that behind the scenes work, for editing, for researching your next big move, but also like sharing kind of in ways that feel, I would say, less obvious. Scorpio is always a little bit subversive or looking at things in different ways, or almost like the treasure hunt. If someone finds you, they're going to be like, this is amazing. This is what I've been looking for. So while you might be surprised that what you share turns out being worth it, I think it's going to lead to things that are surprising and new and exciting ways. I also really encourage you to check your passwords and back up your files during the Scorpio season. This isn't a retrograde, but there's still this feeling of you're going to be tested in terms of security and loyalty just because it's Scorpio season in general and having Mercury there. That's our computers and our communication and that sort of thing. I would say avoid the temptation to conduct an FBI level investigation all on your own because that always happens, I think, with Mercury and Scorpio. It's like, I want to know everything about this person. But you've got to trust a little bit. That annual full moon in Aries happens just before midnight at 11:48 p.m. Eastern, after just passing across Neptune at the first degree of Aries. So this could really open sort of an emotional floodgate around this moon, where Aries isn't necessarily an emotional moon. To have it pretty much conjunct Neptune, that could just, it's going to lead to something. Is that going to be a deep subconscious anger that comes out? Is it going to be anger in general? I would encourage you to maybe find ways to move your body, be constructive in how you de-escalate any drama. Just be aware of your surroundings around some of that energy. On the 7th, we've got an emotional continuation with several planets making a scene today. Mercury's in Scorpio, and the first thing it's going to do is square off with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. And this again brings some of those darker undertones that could lead to paranoid thinking, even manipulative tactics in some way or another from others. This investigative energy might help you uncover hidden truths, and that can lead to new ideas or seeing something in a brand new light. But you have to stay open to those ideas. You can't just shut down and say, oh my God, this is the most terrifying thing ever, and I just don't want to go there. Try to stay with that level of curiosity in everything. Then we've got Venus still hanging out in detail-oriented Virgo, but it's only 60 degrees off of emotional Jupiter in Cancer. And this is where you're going to find yourself pulled between protecting your heart or looking more closely at that hard truth. And the moon is still going to have sort of that aggressive undertone hanging in there. By the 8th, it thankfully shifts into Taurus. That's going to slow you down a little bit midweek. Maybe it's almost like I want to get comfortable. I want to snuggle. I want to retreat a little bit. What happens on the 9th, and I don't talk a lot about Lilith, but what I thought was really fascinating about this day was that Lilith is in Scorpio, opposite today's moon in Taurus. And this really brings up themes around power and control, particularly in terms of the feminine archetype. So what's an aspect about yourself that you'd rather not admit? This could be a window of time where shadows bubble to the surface that might surprise you. But on the other hand, it could be a power you didn't know you had. It could be stepping into this divine feminine archetype that says, I'm simply not taking that anymore. And this is the direction I'm going. So it's, again, it's a choose your own adventure. What are you doing with this emotional kind of aggressive undertones? Are you working with them to better yourself, or are you feeling defeated in some way? On the 10th, the moon is going to shift into Gemini. It quickly aligns with Uranus. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because it could affect your dreams as well as your mood. And then it sort of sets up this triggering alignment that happens on the 11th. This is where I've got some warning lights kind of flashing. Venus in Virgo, that's very practical, very pragmatic. It's going to oppose taskmaster Saturn, but in like fiery Aries. So where Venus just wants things to be careful and grounded action that brings about peace and makes things better, Saturn in Aries is like, but it needs to be now. It's just amplifying the pressure. It's like turning on that pressure cooker and just hitting the high power. So you might find you want to assert your dominance. I remember I just talked about Lilith and Scorpio. It's sort of that energy. There might be people looking for independence, who are wanting to confront authority. These are very specific patterns with this energy. And then Pluto is going to be trine to Uranus by less than a degree. So there's this collective rebellious undertone. And I'm going to talk about this flying wedge that we have, but I'm going to save it to the end of this because it really is flavoring everything that's underneath this. So, how can you get curious about your ideas versus your beliefs? I think that's an important part of this week's energy.
That, like, collective rebellious energy makes a lot of sense because the 6 of Wands, is also, like, a victory card, so I feel like that could also be some sort of a, collective energy that might feel a little bit more fiery, even if it isn't hitting you in a fiery way individually, like, maybe it'll be something that you're experiencing from, like, an external way, but it could go either way because victory sometimes, like, once you decide that that's where you're going, like, my Mars is in Scorpio too, so I feel like it might be something that flares itself here and there. But actually, the energy, I think, is sort of like blending between these 2 weeks because from October 12th to the 18th, I have the Hermit, another Major Arcana, the 9 card. And I feel like that feeling like you just want to retreat versus being part of that external energy. Like what Emily was saying, like midweek, that the week before, like that urge to like sort of like cuddle and relax and get comfortable. That might sort of still bleed into this. But I think what actually is coming through here is that reflection energy, that like bigger picture. What is it I'm learning right now? Like, what is it that I'm meant to be taking from this energy? And I think we all, again, need to slow down once in a while. And even if the energy is chaotic around you, sometimes the opportunity to rest isn't always just put in front of you. Sometimes you have to like take that for yourself. And I do feel like that's sort of what this energy is bringing us right now. And it's funny because what I wrote down for this one is tune into why you are on this path. So I do think it's really trying to bring you into the big picture, even though we might get lost in the day to day and we might feel that pressure from external things that are happening and people around us. But it really does feel like there's an energy that is calling you to reinvigorate yourself. It's like it still feels like it could have like a fiery sort of energy to it, but it's like trying to connect that energy of like your emotional like attachment to what you're doing with that fire to make it happen. But you can't do that unless you slow down enough to bring your awareness to it and to actually see and check in with yourself and make sure that it's, again, tuning into that why energy of like, why am I doing this? And am I fighting just for the sake of fighting for something? Or do I actually want this to happen? Or do I actually want to maintain this? Like, is this sustainable? Am I fighting just because I said I was going to do it and I don't actually care anymore? Or am I fighting because I know this is something that I'm doing long term? And it's important to me to that I continue doing this and that I make sure people know what my boundaries are around it. Um, and I think actually I'm going to bring in my theme for the month was the 17, the fates from the wisdom of the oracle. And this card, as much as like the fates sounds like, oh, it looks similar to the wheel, where it sounds like, oh, this is magical. This is like an amazing energy. But this card actually reminds us that sometimes things aren't in our control. And again, with the wheel, it's a timing thing, or it's, sometimes we just have to use the things that are in front of us to the best of our ability. And so this can be, it feels like it has the energy of sort of like similar to eclipse energy, where it's like you don't know what's coming and going. It could be relationships suddenly ending or the right person, like fated connections could be really exciting and really fun at this time. Like there could be something that comes in right at the right time. It could be really almost like a sign or like serendipity, one of our favorite words. Like it could be that sort of feeling throughout the month. And again, this isn't just for this week. This is for the whole Libra season. But it can also have things where like maybe you were expecting things to turn out a certain way and then something takes a hard left and it's not going to be possible anymore. But what I really want to bring our attention to is the number 17, because one is something new, something fresh, something that's a new beginning. But the 7 also has that connection to spirit and to, the mystical path and understanding that we're connected to other things. And if we put those together, if we are willing to start something new and we understand that we're still connected to everything, that can bring abundance, that 8 energy, which is very stable and it can be very long term. And it can be like a karmic energy where you're getting back some of the energy you've been putting into things. So if we keep that in mind along with the Hermit, it's like taking that time to really sink into it and acknowledge that, yes, I am on this path. Like the fact that I wrote down tuning into why you're on this path, that can actually be like a reset where it reinvigorates you to keep moving forward into whatever it is that's in front of you or whatever comes your way. If you're really not sure and nothing's happening, it's just being open to whatever the fates are delivering to you.
That's interesting because the tone I sort of leaned into for this particular week is like this seesaw feeling between effortless flow, like being in that magical space, and painful truth. Thankfully the 12th isn't too bad. There's some of those underlying tensions from the day before. The moon's going to dive into Cancer. So it's like that. I just want things to be okay. Um, but then on the 13th, this is just we get Venus moving out of grounded Virgo and into Libra. So it's going to amplify what the sun is already bringing our awareness to. And this is going to instantly activate a 2-day grand trine again through the air signs. We just keep getting this emphasis. But this really brings a highlight, just the biggest bullet point ever, to the importance of your mindset and your thoughts and what you're nurturing during this time. And if I had to guess, I feel like a lot of the energy during all of Libra season is going to be outer personal. It's like things are happening globally, community wise. It's maybe not in the home. So it may be for some people, but for the vast majority of us, it's like it's happening out there and we don't necessarily have control over it. Um, so where is your mindset during these things? What are you focusing on? Is it the 24-hour news cycle? Are you, going down dark energy rabbit holes? What are you leaning into? Just being really careful about what you're spending your time thinking about. Venus is at home in Libra. It's going to be there until the 6th. So you're going to be finding ways to pamper yourself, to feel connected to people. This energy, it feels really effortless in some ways. But one thing I wanted to tell people is just to watch out your wallet, because Venus in Libra can be overindulgent. It's like, I'm going to go shopping so that I don't have to think about any of this stuff. Then you might come home with a whole lot of Halloween decorations that you didn't really need. What we also have happening, though, is, of course, now Venus has got this trine going off, but now it's going to also immediately oppose, is it dreamy or is it delusional, Neptune and Pisces, just creating this air of watery fogginess. It's like you can't quite put your finger on it, but are you actually seeing the whole picture? Anytime you can lean into discernment during this window, I think it's really important. And again, like you said, with the faith, I know that wasn't necessarily the energy meant just for this week, but I think it's aptly timed that we talked about it. You know, you don't necessarily have to go with the first thing just to move things along and make them happen. Sometimes it's okay to see what bubbles, what alchemizes as you're waiting for the best option. The other thing that happens, this is still on the 13th, Pluto ends its retrograde. It stations direct in Aquarius. This energy, because Pluto is such a slow mover, I mean, we're talking 4 degrees in an entire year. It's like holding a pen to a piece of paper too long and it bleeds out. When Pluto's or any of these outer planets station direct and they just kind of linger in the sky at this one exact degree for a long moment, it adds an emphasis to what we're supposed to be looking at. And in this case, it's in the very earliest degrees of Aquarius. Um, After this, it's been 5 months in retrograde. And this sort of feels like it's going to wake up. So we kind of get this green light again to start moving on those bigger game-changing visions that we had, that then we kind of lost hope in over the summer. It's like this is now, okay, let's make another move. Let's take the next step. But keep in mind, it's here until 2044. So this is a slow burn. And this, can be bringing in some of those slow social justice type of undertones. And then for you in a personal lens, kind of allowing your freak flag to fly? How can you step further into your authentic self in some way? Sorry, but the 13th is hot. Finally, on the 14th, we still have this grand trine happening between Venus, Uranus, and Pluto. So each planet is in the first degree of an air sign, be it Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. And this is uniting the energy of the air element to its full power. And air is really all about relationships, thoughts, communication, the things that are sort of between our soul and our human body. I always think air is that magical space in between. What are you doing to cut through the surface layer of those relationships, thoughts, and communications? And what role do you actively play in them? Again, being aware of how your thoughts shape your reality. We've already noticed how quickly things are manifesting. So just being aware of under this influence, you might find, a creative or a brilliant solution that you just hadn't seen before. It can really bring things in a new light. The 15th, thankfully, is mostly calm. The moon is going to move into Leo. The 16th is a little rocky. What we're doing is we're building up to this energy on the 17th, where we have you kind of self-sacrificing your own peace in some way. The sun is still in diplomatic Libra, and it's like you want to compromise yourself or your feelings or your emotions or something to calm this emotional water that's taking over. But Jupiter in sensitive Cancer is going to stir up your personal bias. And it's like you can't be impartial because it feels too personal. I would say, think twice before stepping in as the peacemaker, because you could just stir things up worse than you intended. It's best to be supportive from a distance, mind your boundaries. And then adding to this dynamic, Chiron is square to Jupiter and opposite the sun. So it's like Chiron is really playing at your wounds with this. If you're already feeling unseen or undervalued or unheard, this energy today is just going to magnify it. On the other hand, if you've been working through that, it could be an opportunity to kind of test out your shiny new insights. But I have a feeling it's going to be, like you said, a little bit more of you have to take what's coming and roll with it energy.
Yeah, I feel like the fates, like I came up at this point for a reason because I forgot already, perhaps intentionally, that the last few days of Libra season leading into Scorpio from October 19th to the 22nd, we have the Tower, my dear friend. I feel like I keep anticipating it every month, but now it's actually here. And it does have that energy, like what we were saying about the beginning of the month, how we were like, we just want to rip off the Band-Aid. And I think all of this, like internal, external, back and forth, processing, the discernment, that energy of like really tuning into like why you're doing what you're doing, that will be like a grounding force so that when this happens, whatever this tower moment is, um, it's going to be more of like a welcome energy of like, okay, I'm ready to move forward. And I think what I also want to just highlight is that there's no card or like energy that's bad or good. I think everyone experiences it based on where they're at that time. And I think if you are already ready for a change, it's always going to be uncomfortable. There's always something about change that's uncomfortable, but the overall big picture energy is like, I needed a change. Like even when something's happening in the moment, like if you're having the hard conversation or you're discussing what the changes are going to be, it's not pleasant. But then when you tune out, you're like, well, I asked for change and I didn't want to be stuck in this energy anymore. So I think it's that Hermit and the Tower together at the end here as like an end of the month, 2 weeks, both major arcana. It's very much, I think, again, blending. Whereas, we had some blending happening before. I think this also was a blending energy where we're still going to have those moments where we have to really like retreat because it's a lot of energy when you're making a big change or when a change is happening around you. But its purpose is to stabilize things. So if we look at the numbers of the Tower, the Fates was the 1 and the 7, the 17, and the Tower is the 16. So it's like right before. but it's a similar energy in that it starts with a 1. There has to be some change. It's something new that's coming in. But the 6 is, again, harmony. We had the 6 and the 6 of Wands. It's welcome. It's a good thing. It's bringing in something that's going to be a foundation. And the fact that it's the 1 and the 6 together, that's that 7 that we had in the fates, right? It's that energy of like, yes, it's fated. It is a new path. It is something that connects us to the universe. It's something that's coming in for us. You know, it helps us connect in with spirit, with our own soul. Again, connecting our soul, like Emily said, to those thoughts we've been having and then bringing it into the reality. There's a lot of positive energy that I think we forget the tower brings. The tower crumbles everything so that we can start with a more secure foundation. The whole point of the tower is that what we've been building to this point was maybe very close to what we wanted, but it's not where we want to end up. It's not the finishing point. It's not like we get to a certain point where we're like, we got a good thing. I'm never going to try for anything more. Right. And I think that plateau energy that maybe we were hoping for just to calm ourselves earlier in the month, we're now over it. And we're like, okay, I actually am okay. I realize I don't actually want things to slow down. I actually do want to take action. So the fact that we have Pluto going direct, I think is why we have the tower energy, because Pluto tends to be a little bit destructive, a little bit like, let's change things up. Let's make things look new. And again, Pluto in Aquarius, very individualistic, authenticity is a huge thing. And that's what we might be realizing. That Hermit energy from last week is like bringing our awareness to where we're not being authentic or where things aren't really aligning. And that prepares us for the ability to pivot and to be like, yes, fine, you know what, burn it all down, let's start from scratch. And it doesn't feel so scary when you're ready for it. I think that's the big thing, is like that slowing down this whole month that has been a theme, that emotional energy. It's like we really do have to have some self-awareness. I think that's the key. A lot of people are perhaps missing this and not doing enough of this, but the self-awareness is the key to this whole month, and the whole month, like Libra energy. It's like the more you know yourself, the more you're not going to, you know, maybe compromise too much and compromise your values or your desires. And you are going to still have compassion. That emotional energy is still there. It's not like we're all going to become menaces and just do things for ourselves, but it's just having that, again, the balance, right? That harmony, that 6 energy came up a couple times this month, and it's for a reason. It's because our goal is and isn't to cause chaos. It's to maybe, you know, take the good pieces and make something new that's more equal, that's more fair, that's more balanced for everyone, because we can't always have one person that's always happy and everyone around them has to sacrifice, right? And I think that's an energy like collectively that we're learning. But I think the more we can recognize that in our own lives, where it's like, if you feel like, even if people aren't asking you to, if you're just voluntarily becoming the martyr every time somebody has to give in, you're the one who gives in. Why? Why is it always you? Right. And I think a lot of us maybe don't realize we're even doing it because that is the pattern. But that's where the Hermit and the Tower together, I think that's the key energy, is like knowing yourself and being of the high, a bigger perspective enough so that when the opportunity comes up, whatever it is that you have to change, you're going to be like, no, this is my turn to say yes to what I want, and to just let go of whatever is holding you back from being authentic. And I think Pluto is going to be a really good pal in this situation. It may not be, you know, the most swift movement for everyone. It may be very subtle for other people, but just recognize those opportunities when they come. And I think it's going to be a really helpful energy for moving us forward.
Yeah, this is like that really quick little burst of energy, and it'll be interesting to see how Scorpio season takes shape. I've just barely started writing some of the astrology for it, but the tone I captured for this is like the dramatic finale, right? We've got these deep emotional confrontations kind of blowing up around us. But at the same time, and this is so Tower, it's clearing the path for what is supposed to be. What are the new beginnings? The 19th is mostly quiet. On the 20th, we've got Mercury and Mars, and they're conjoining with one another. They meet up in fierce, powerful Scorpio. So here you've got our mindset and our actions and motivations really centered around power struggles, hidden agendas, under the table tactics. it's this feeling of like, I don't know who I trust. Do I even trust myself? So that's where I think when Andrea was saying, like, where do I stand? What have I learned about myself? How self-aware am I to know where I feel safe and not? Have I looked around at my environment? Um, I think it's interesting when I sometimes talk about Scorpio season, just to even bring in the animal of the scorpion and how its sting, can really leave a lasting wound. And I think that's important to remember. Like, if you share things in the heat of the moment, you can't take them back. They leave a lasting wound. So if you can, keep your focus, step back and cool down. I think this is in, your personal relationships, particularly, but just approaching things with that calm assurance, that control that says, I know who I am, I'm safe, I'm in my own energy. It's going to help you from getting kind of swept up in things. On the 21st, I like this new moon in Libra. It's happening, on the last day of Libra season. It's really helping to close out this last eclipse season that we just got through. And, a new moon in Libra, we get this once a year. It's this beautiful energy that just asks you to nurture your network and your connections, and like, who are the people that make life worth living? What activities do you want to engage with them in? What's tricky about this moon is that Jupiter is going to be square. So this is a feeling of like your closest family or your chosen family, your super inner circle, right? That foundation level relationship that Cancer signifies. They could have some strong opinions about your choices, about where are you getting involved in things that maybe you've overstepped in some way. So if you can keep that focus again on your vision, on the big picture, don't lose sight of the big picture, and release the need to take on everyone else's details, their opinions, all those things. And it's so much easier said than done, particularly with the moon in Libra. But let it really be a conscious choice to release the old and step into partnerships with a new vision. And I think that's part of what this tower is. It's a watery tower. It's kind of getting swept away and like, nope, I'm just whatever this is, we're cleaning it out and we're making room for what is more aligned. Yeah. Overall, I would say, as much as eclipse season sort of hyper focused us on what is important, what is the big picture, what are the details. I think if you've been, kind of doing the shadow work through this and paying attention, you'll have the bigger vision to lean into when you don't need to focus on the details as much. And just finding that balance is going to be so important in Libra season between self and others and your big picture versus someone else's big picture. And where do they overlap? What's the Venn diagram of, this is my partner's big picture and this is mine, but in the middle we have this common area. And that's just where we have to focus right now. The rest of it is details. And details can be changed, just like opinions and thoughts and ideas. Um, Stay flexible, I would say. Like any, um, it's a cardinal season, so it's already a little bit flexible. It's leaning back and forth between those energies. But by the time we get to Scorpio, it's going to be fixed. You're going to be like, this is where I'm digging in. This is where I draw the line. So you're right there at that precipice before we get into this energy.
You know what's coming to mind? Well, first of all, I realized I didn't share, which now makes even more sense, the phrase that I had for that last week
Oh,
with the tower, which is trust that new pathways are destined. And that trust energy, of like the Scorpio energy. But what I just saw in my head when you were talking about this energy is like that you're going to dig in wherever you end up in Scorpio season was I saw like dowsing rods where it's like right now you're trying to, really tune into where you want to be because that's where the gold is. Like that's where the treasure is. It came in so clearly in my head just now. And so I think that energy of we always have something that comes up that is like the thing that brings us from one season into the next. And so I think that's what it's going to be, is like trusting that wherever your intuition is leading you, that's where you're going to have to dig in for Scorpio season. And that is the work of Libra season. Like, you have to know yourself, you have to trust your body, you have to be connected to your body, and you have to like trust that intuition. But yeah, those new pathways, and relationships and big energies that are changing, I think we're going to know it. I think it's one of those things, it's one of those annoying things that people say where it's like, when you know, and you're like, shut it. Like, what does that even mean? But then it happens and you're like, oh, I just knew. And then you're like, oh, okay. Like, it's one of those things, I think, where we have to, as much as we can, try and prepare you the best we can until you're in it and you're feeling it in your own body, in your own way. Like, we all have different senses that we use, even if we think of like spiritually, like some people hear things from that make sense. Some people feel it in their bodies. Some people just know it, you know? And I think that's something that's very personal. And that's why slowing down and like connecting with yourself is going to be the only way you're going to know what's next and what aligns with you.
One of the things we were talking about with the fates, and I wanted to circle back to this idea of the flying wedge, is this is a configuration between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And if you can imagine, Pluto and Uranus are trining each other. So that's about 120 degrees apart. But in between them, so sort of making a short pyramid, we have Neptune. Okay, so that little triangle is going to hang out from basically August of this year through 2028 in different closeness. Right now, it's at the 0 to 1, it maybe not quite 2-degree-ish mark. It's going to be hanging out in the 11-degree mark as we get into summer next year. But there was on the astrology podcast, which if you're a super astrology nerd like me, I highly recommend. They go off the deep end. They're like 4-hour episodes of like each month. It's crazy. But one of the things Josh was talking about was this, he decided to kind of name this configuration the flying wedge. And the reason it stuck with me so much is he was talking about like, well, what other things are named the flying wedge? And, you know, it refers to things like this football configuration it's illegal now. You can't do it. It's also a military formation where you put someone at the front and everyone else around them. And even like think of geese flying in a V, right? That person at the front is just plowing through. And you can get through next to anything in that configuration. That to me is that energy of the fates. And what's happened is this energy has all moved from water and earth. Now we've got a lot in water right now, I know, but we're going to be leaving some of that behind. And we're moving into fire and air. Things are just going to be moving even quicker, but it feels like we're getting through like the clog a little bit. It's like we've got to the fates are taking over. As much as we want to say we maybe have control or know what's happening, it's very much a hands off the steering wheel. We've left the gas station in the desert. You know, we've had our road trip theme for the whole year. And that liminal space of eclipse season of being in the 24-hour desert gas station, getting our snacks, and knowing that we've got another 12 hours to go. Like there's no hotel. You just got to drive. And it is what it is. Like you might see something, you might not. You might have another road stop. You don't know. But fate is taking you all the way to the end. And so even though I'm not going to, necessarily talk about specifically that energy between those 3 planets every single month, because I think I'd talk about it 500 times and you'd all be sick of me. If I start referring to the flying wedge, this is what I'm talking about. It's just, there's other things that come in and then activate, the rest of the trine with the air sign. But between these 3 major outer planets having this close, tight-knit relationship, pulling at things at all nearly the same degree, it's just unprecedented. It's very much, we're being pulled into the future, whether we like it or not. And we really can't see it because Neptune's kind of blurring the direction. It's like, hang on, we don't know. We just know it's going to be different, and you're going to have to change your mind when we get there.
Yeah, it almost feels like at this point we're in like a self-driving car and we're not even driving it. We've just changed into like some sort of like weird mutant vehicle and we're like, well, I have my snacks. I just have to hope that wherever it's programmed, I enjoy the ride and that we get somewhere half decent, you know? I feel like it's like giving up control. It's like to a next level where I don't even know what's driving it at this point. I'm not gonna ask questions. I can't see the driver, but I am gonna eat my snacks and hope for the best. And I think that's where like having the circle around you that like is really important during Libra season to set yourself up so that the people that are closest to you, the people that you're choosing to collaborate with or to, deepen connections. Because Scorpio, that will deepen to the point where perhaps to your detriment if you're around people that are not really aligned or that don't have your best interests at heart. But I feel like that's part of the equation of a road trip is who you're stuck in a car with for 12 hours. So I think that's where, these energies blend quite a bit with the Libra and Scorpio, because again, like Emily said, whatever you're digging into and holding on to from Libra season is going to you're going to be going deep in Scorpio season, whether you like it or not.
Oh my goodness. This is an interesting one. These have been some of the hardest months to write astrologically because there's just so much happening in so many directions. And, we get used to little daily transits, but these are big, impactful things that just keep rolling like that distant thunder. And you're like, is the storm here yet? I just keep hearing that. I wanted to share some of our offerings. I've got just a couple of appointments left in September. I think there's a small handful left in October. I'm going to be gone for a chunk in the middle of October on a little retreat. So that's kind of eaten up some of those spaces. So if you want to get in before Scorpio season and kind of solidify what path am I on, what cycles are coming up for me, I really recommend checking out some of those spots that are still left. Other than that, I just have some fun things going on in the background. Of course, Blackthorn Manor is still happening. There's updates on Instagram. We have almost completed the broom room. We're moving on to the hat making studio and the tarot. There's a reception area on the first level. So little fun things coming up with that. Otherwise, I have a few other things happening, but they're kind of under wraps at the moment. Not to be too Scorpio secretive, but they will be happening, and I'm excited to be sharing when they come available. You can always catch me over at Spirit Social. I share different and fun things over there. Of course, Cards and Cosmos happen the first Saturday of each month. Our next one will be October the 4th. That's at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We get together, we talk this through, we do a meditation that I custom make for us each month, a card pull that is custom to like what is the energy coming up. I actually think we might dive into ancestry a little bit this month. So it's going to be, playing with the energy in some ways, where else we can pull in those relationships and support. I feel, yeah. Other than that, what's new in your world?
That sounds exciting. And I always love a little bit of a secret, a little bit of a reveal for later. It's always a fun energy, but definitely join in on the Cards and Cosmos. I'm excited to dive into some ancestry. I feel like I've had some loved ones around me lately, so it'll be kind of interesting to work with that a little bit more. For me, I have a seasonal recharge coming up. So on October 2nd, it will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And that is where we all get together. I do half an hour of energy work, which if you've been in sessions with me, I work with just earth energies. I have crystals, plants come through. It's a lot of things just making their presence known to me. And then I just sort of work through how that's going to translate to you. So I'm just sort of the channel of the energy, sending it to everyone who's present. And if you're not able to make it, there is a replay so that you're still included in all of the intentions for the session. And then we get to discuss it and get to see the magic of how we are all connected to this energy and how there's overlaps and what is experienced. And it's always interesting to learn how each person experiences the energy, whether it's more so in the body or in the mind or in any sort of a connection to spirit that comes through. But I think that breaking down of the energy as a group has become like a really integral part of it. I didn't do that for a long time. I did them monthly and just on my own, and it was still a really good experience, but I think this sort of allows it to expand a little bit more so that everyone brings in their perspective as well. So we get like extra energy and extra interpretation that's not just coming from me. So that's one of my favorite parts. And then, of course, I do share all of the energies that came up. I send a PDF that has all of the crystals and plants and anything that's major. And then throughout the month, I try my best to add in a couple articles here and there, but it's more so sometimes people will reach out to me and I do a little bit more one-on-one. So if you want me to pull a card or you want me to tune into a certain part of the energy that came up, or if like there's a certain crystal or like a certain plant that you're really interested in, then I can do a bit of a deep dive for you. But I think that connection piece at the beginning has been the most important. I've had a few people tell me that even watching the replay again, they experienced the energy difference. Someone was telling me they felt it in their body the first time. And then the next time it was like all in their third eye and they were like seeing things and receiving different things. So I think that's kind of the fun thing about having this like energy imprint that you have access to. It's for 3 months. So there's a lot of time to process compared to the monthly ones before where I'd barely even get through one and be starting on the next one. So I feel like this is better for everyone to be able to process it. But if you want some more one-on-one energy, I do have some, not very many, but I have a few appointments for card readings, for Oracle and Tarot readings. And then I'm going to be opening up for the first time. I have art commissions opening up for prints for lino and for dry point. So I have some examples on my website because I know not everyone is as familiar as me with the language of printmaking, but I'm working on another project, which I'll be putting out soon, which is making little quilts with different little blocks and different combinations. So that's going to be a really fun thing leading into the holidays. I feel like it'll be something that'll be fun for gifting, getting to, select colors and patterns for people. So that's what's coming up next. And yeah, I'm feeling like there's a lot of creative energy that's finally making its way into reality rather than just living in my head, which feels really good. So I think that recharge is going to be bringing in a lot of that tangible energy and the connection piece of like how connecting to others and sharing it with others is going to impact us with whatever we're working on.
And I just wanted to share, I love the people that are attracted to your energy healing. I found that not only did I meet people that I hadn't encountered in other circles, but that the willingness to come and be part of the group experience was really what added, I think, like you said, that extra profound layer. And that was one of the most profound experiences I had was your summer healing recharge. So I'm really looking forward to fall. I felt like all of the crystals and plans and messages really picked up the themes of what continued for me. So 50 stars out of 10, highly recommend. And not just because you're my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do agree. I feel like the people that are meant to be in that energy always seem to show up. And I think that generosity of spirit, that willingness to be a little bit vulnerable. And I will say, for anybody who's like, I don't like to share, I don't want it to be, on camera. I do a portion that is recorded so that the people who are doing the replay aren't totally left in the dark. They get to hear a little bit of what people want to share. And then I do always leave a little bit of time at the end where you can share without it being recorded, because that's really important to me. Sometimes you really want to get something out, but it's just a little too vulnerable to share with everybody. And that stays just in the group. Like that doesn't go anywhere. That just stays in our energy. But I agree with Emily. I think same with Cards and Cosmos. I feel like the two of us, we do attract some really wonderful people. And I think it's a really fun way to experience different energies and the group experiences. So if you haven't done Cards and Cosmos or the recharges and you're looking for some connection, especially in Libra season, I do think it's a really great way to reinvigorate your own energy again.
I love it. I'm intrigued by Libra season. We'll see how this unfolds. If any of you need any support through this, of course, you always know you can reach out. We're happy to help in any way we can, whether you're booking sessions or just looking for guidance and direction to go. So thank you all for listening. We will see you next month in Scorpio season, and get ready because I can't believe we're winding down 2025 already.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.